Ashmore County Courthouse, Room 3B, buzzed with the heavy hush of anticipation. The ceiling fan hummed. The benches creaked under weighty silences and glances that spoke more than words. Alara Vance sat alone at the plaintiff's table, her hands clasped tightly, eyes focused ahead. Her son, Caleb, was at home nursing a broken wrist and a face blackened by bruises. Across the aisle sat Officer Valerie Kincaid, impeccable, unmoved, polished like brass. She looked every bit the professional, but her smile held something colder. Her version of the story: Caleb had tried to steal a soda, had lunged at her. She'd responded with force. But the store footage, though mysteriously missing a minute, showed Caleb walking out calmly. Witnesses from a neighborhood said he'd offered to pay. They said Kincaid never gave him the chance. Judge Thorne barely looked up from his notes. Old, pale, and tired of noise, he treated Alara's attorney like an irritant. "Keep it brief," he muttered. When the pediatrician described Caleb's injuries, defensive wounds, head trauma, Thorne didn't flinch. That was when the door creaked open and a man entered, slow and unbothered. Gray overcoat. No briefcase. No badge. He sat quietly in the third row. Didn't speak. Didn't blink. Just watched. Valerie noticed. Her smile faltered, only slightly. Her attorney leaned in. "You know him?" "No," she muttered. "But he's watching like he owns the place." Alara took the stand. Her voice trembled as she recounted the moment Caleb stumbled in, bleeding and shaking. He kept saying, "Mama, I didn't do nothing." Next came Officer Ken Riley, testifying that he trusted Kincaid's judgment. The judge waved off cross-examination. Kincaid took the stand, polished and poised. "I feared for my safety," she repeated. It wasn't about race. Her words were smooth. Too smooth. The man in gray shifted slightly. Just enough for her to notice. She glanced toward him, and then quickly looked away. He didn't move. But his pen did. And one asked who he was. But courtroom clerk Anita Cross approached him during recess, a bottle of water in hand. "You good, sir?" Before he could answer, Officer Sterling stepped between them. "He's fine," he said gently but firm. Anita nodded and walked away. The man, Miles Duval, simply nodded in return. No one knew he'd just been appointed to oversee internal affairs in the Ashmore County Department. He wasn't here to intervene, he was here to listen. A woman in the back whispered, "He's not just watching. He's waiting." Her neighbor asked, "Waiting for what?" "For this room to tell on itself," she said. When Valerie stepped off the stand, she made her way to Miles. "Filming in court's a felony," she whispered. Miles didn't reply. His silence unnerved her. She leaned closer. "You people think your silence makes you holy, but we run this room." Then, with a flick of her wrist, she slid a folded paper into the inner pocket of his coat and walked away like nothing happened. Seconds later, Valerie raised her voice just enough. "Officers, I believe this man may be in possession of restricted documents." Sterling approached. "Sir, may we check your coat?" Miles nodded once, calmly handed over his notebook. Officer Chavez reached into the coat, pulled out the paper. His brow furrowed. "It's a personnel report." Valerie folded her arms, lips curled in a satisfied smirk. Sterling looked at Miles. "Care to explain?" Miles didn't blink. He shook his head. Gasps whispered across the room. Anita Cross stood at the back, watching it unfold. Her jaw tightened. Then she stepped forward. "Your Honor," she called out. The judge barely glanced up. "Yes. I'd like to submit a statement. I was present when Officer Kincaid left her desk unattended earlier, and I saw her holding that same piece of paper before the recess." A hush fell. Kincaid turned slowly, a flicker of panic in her eyes. "That's not," she began, but Judge Thorne held up a hand. "This is irregular," he said, but for once his voice cracked. Alara sat motionless, her knuckles white on the wooden table. Miles remained still, notebook closed now, his eyes locked not on Valerie, but on the judge. Somewhere behind them, a bailiff whispered into a radio. And then, Judge Thorne banged his gavel twice. "This is a civil hearing. Remove any disruptions from the room immediately." Valerie Kincaid didn't flinch. Arms crossed, her stare lingered on Miles Duval in the gallery, as if daring him to break. But he didn't. Anita Cross, The court clerk narrowed her eyes. She had seen Valerie lean in earlier, too close to Miles, too deliberate. She said nothing now, but she was watching. And near the back, Darlene Brooks whispered, "He's not panicking. He's letting her bury herself." Chavez turned to Miles. "Sir, do you have anything to say?" Miles didn't move, but his silence now felt different, like someone who knew exactly what was coming next. Valerie sat straighter, but for the first time, a flicker of doubt passed through her eyes. Court resumed. Judge Thorne cleared his throat. "I've reviewed the plaintiff's motion." Motion denied. Caleb's attorney stood. "Your Honor, we must consider the accusation that Officer Kincaid planted. There is no proof." Thorne snapped. "Unless you have direct video or sworn testimony, I'll consider further discussion contemptuous." Alara, Caleb's mother, covered her mouth with a trembling hand. Her cheeks were wet, though she wasn't sobbing anymore. Caleb reached out, voice small. "It's okay, Mama. We knew they wouldn't believe us." "You didn't do anything wrong," she whispered. "You just wanted a soda." Thorne glanced their way, annoyed. "Ma'am, please maintain decorum." She nodded quickly. The silence between her and her son said more than any words could. Valerie took the stand again, voice crisp. "I fear for my safety." The young man was uncooperative, advancing toward me. I acted as any officer would. Her eyes brushed across the courtroom and paused on Miles. "We make decisions in real time. I did what was necessary." Judge Thorne gave a slight nod. Not a ruling, but approval. The defense team looked pleased. And through it all, Miles sat motionless. In the hallway after court, people moved around him without speaking. Some avoided his gaze. Some glanced briefly, then looked away. He sat near the wall, quiet, still. Valerie exited moments later, her heels sharp against the floor. She spotted him and walked directly over. "I've seen your type," she said, her voice like a dagger wrapped in velvet. "Pretending you're neutral. But I know what you're doing." Miles said nothing. "You people think silence makes you strong. It doesn't. It just makes you invisible." He still didn't respond. She leaned closer, voice a whisper laced with venom. "You'll fade. You always do." She shoved him hard. His back hit the marble wall, and he slid to the floor. Gasps scattered down the corridor. A woman holding her phone had just tapped record. Her camera captured everything. The impact, the grin flickering across Valerie's face, the way Miles quietly stood, brushed off his coat, and straightened his sleeve. He didn't speak. He didn't retaliate. But when he looked at Valerie, something shifted. Not anger, something older, wiser. Her voice caught. Her confidence cracked. Voices whispered behind them. He didn't even flinch. The woman lowered her phone slowly, her eyes wide. She didn't know who Miles was, but something in that silence rattled her. Miles turned back toward the courtroom. Valerie didn't follow. Inside, the defense smirked. "Your Honor, we move to dismiss all charges." Officer Kincaid acted within reason. There is no solid evidence of misconduct. Judge Thorne raised his gavel, then paused. A voice, calm and clear, cut through the room. "Your Honor, that won't be necessary." Every head turned. Miles was on his feet, walking toward the bench with unshakable purpose. Valerie froze. Her colleague whispered her name, but she didn't respond. Miles stopped before the judge. Reaching into his coat, he pulled out a leather badge case. He flipped it open. Miles Duval, federal investigator, Department of Civil Rights. Gasps rippled through the courtroom. Even Thorne leaned back. Miles continued. "We've been monitoring misconduct reports tied to Officer Kincaid for over a year. Today, that investigation reaches its conclusion." He turned to Valerie. "You tampered with evidence. You assaulted a federal officer. You lied under oath. And now, you'll face consequences." Valerie opened her mouth, but no sound came out. Her face drained of color. Miles stepped aside as two plainclothes agents entered the courtroom. One read Valerie her rights. The other escorted her out. She didn't resist. Alara clutched Caleb's hand. He looked up wide-eyed. "Mama, he was one of the good guys." She nodded slowly, tears falling again. "The best kind. The quiet kind." Judge Thorne cleared his throat. "This court is adjourned, pending further review." But no one moved. All eyes were on Miles as he returned to his seat, calm as ever. The notebook remained in his pocket, its final page marked with a name, Valerie Kincaid. Underneath it, one word had been added. I counted that in the silence that followed. It was no longer the officer's voice. Anyone remembered that it was his. Without saying a word,